Hello and welcome to Unearthly. It's often said that children have a stronger connection to the supernatural world as they're pure and innocent. Almost all kids can look through the veil that separates this world from the next, and they lose this ability as they start to talk, walk, and grow older. Here are some real life examples of the sixth sense of little kids. My husband is a farmer. Once, when it was pretty late at night, at around 10 p.m., he asked me to pick him up from the farm. So I loaded our two girls, who were then 4 and 2, into our van and headed to the field. When I got to the field, my husband was still finishing his last round, so we had to wait for 10 minutes. I shut off the engine of the van and rolled down the windows. After a couple of minutes, my 2-year-old asked, "Mommy, who that man outside?" I said, "I don't see a man. Why is your Ken doll on the floor?" My 4-year-old then piped up, "He's just outside your door and staring at you. There, Mommy, look! He's scary. He has blood on his face." I immediately locked the doors, rolled the windows up, and switched on the engine. I called my husband and told him to hurry up because apparently there's a scary man right outside my door that I can't see, but both girls are describing him and what he's doing. Thankfully, my husband was done and heading up to the van at that very moment, and we left. My girls are now 5 and 7, and they still remember that man and refuse to go to that particular field. I have to ask my mother-in-law to watch them whenever I need to pick up their daddy from there. We tried to find out the history of the farm. My husband's grandparents, who farmed it before us, don't know of anyone who died under unnatural circumstances there. His grandma is 94, and she says she knows of only one death near there, but it was a baby that got trampled to death by some cattle and not a man. During my early childhood, my mom stayed home to take care of me, so it was just her and me at home most work days. When I was around 4 years old, my mom would often hear me talking, laughing, and having entire conversations upstairs in my room. When she asked who I was speaking to, I apparently said, "I'm talking to the man, Mommy. He's saying he builded this house." My mom thought I was just a kid with an active imagination and that it was an imaginary friend. She also said I simply adored the man. One day, my grandpa came over with some old albums and was showing my mom some old photographs while I ran around and played. Eventually, I must have gotten curious as I walked over to them and looked at the album. My mom said I suddenly became very excited. I pointed at an old photo and exclaimed, "Hey, Grandpa, Mommy, that's my friend. That's the man." It turns out that the man was my very own great-great-granduncle. He had actually built the house we lived in just before the Civil War and later fought and died in the Civil War. His body was brought back by train and laid wake in the living room of our house. As an adult, I don't remember either the man or anything I said about him, but I think it's sweet that I apparently enjoyed his company. I feel that elderly relatives who pass away continue to watch over the younger generations. When I was 13, our house in Jakarta, Indonesia, was right by an infamous T-junction. The road connected to this T-junction is a one-way road where huge trailers and trucks drive at high speed, resulting in horrific accidents. The accidents occurred mainly at night, and we would actually hear the sounds of the crash as it happened. I could even see the accident site right from my front gate, but I was forbidden by my parents from watching. One night at around 10, I was playing in the living room and my parents were in the kitchen. We heard the familiar screech of tires skidding, followed by a tremendous crash. I ran out of the house to see what happened. A motorcycle, mangled and twisted, was lying on the ground. To my horror, there was blood splattered on the side of the pavement. Unfortunately, it was a hit and run accident, which was quite common at the time. Before I could get any closer, my mom told me to go back, but I begged her to let me see what happened. As time was running out to help the victim, she agreed but told me to stay around 20 feet away. The impact had thrown the victim's body into a ditch next to the pavement. The crash site was now crowded with people trying to help. 4 people had to work together to remove the body, and they covered it with some newspapers. Sitting just a few feet away from the body was a lone man. He was wearing a clean white t-shirt and blue jeans, cradling his head in his hands like he was in dead trouble and sobbing. No one paid him any attention. After a few minutes, I was starting to get bothered by this. He was clearly in distress. Was he riding along with the victim when the accident occurred? Why weren't any of the adults comforting him? Around 20 minutes later, a police car arrived with some relatives of the victim. His wife and daughter were crying their hearts out as they were led to the body. To my surprise, the sobbing man was gone. Later that night, I asked my mom why no one was helping the man in the white shirt and blue jeans who was crying. She looked pale and asked me if I had actually seen him. I nodded. She had been there the entire time and told me there was no one sitting down and crying near the dead body at any point. Also, she didn't recall seeing anyone in a plain white t-shirt and blue jeans among the people present there. Except the accident victim. He was in his late 30s and wearing a white t-shirt and blue jeans. It was as if I was the only one there who could see him. I will never forget this incident as long as I live. This happened when my son Sam was 4. He was in the car with my mom and my stepdad. Out of the blue, Sam started talking about my stepdad's father. He said his stepdad's dad was driving on a mountain on a very rainy, windy day. The road was very curvy and the rain made it dangerous and slippery. Because of the heavy downpour, he couldn't see where he was going. The car flew off the side of the mountain and crashed. There was blood all over his face and car. At the end of this in-depth explanation, Sam looked at my stepdad and said, "It must have been really scary for him." My stepdad was super freaked out because his dad had indeed died while driving off the side of a mountain during heavy rain. And this was a good decade before Sam was even born. I myself had no idea how he died, as my stepdad had never mentioned it to me. My mom knew he had died in an accident, but not the other details like the mountain, the rain, etc., as my stepdad never talked about it. When my mom, who was just as stunned as my stepdad was, asked him, "How do you know this, Sam?" he didn't say anything. Whenever we asked him how he knew all this, or who told him all this, he would just keep quiet. He never spoke about that accident after that day. From the time my daughter, Ella, was a newborn, my grandma Mimi loved spending time with her. Over the years, Ella and Mimi became best friends till the day Mimi died. Several months later, we were celebrating Ella's fourth birthday. Ella was running around playing with the other kids at the party while my dad and I stood in the kitchen watching. My dad was holding a camcorder and taking a video of the kids. As Ella ran by, she suddenly stopped mid-run and looked directly between us with the biggest smile on her face and said, "Oh Mimi, thank you so much for coming to my party." There was no one else in the kitchen apart from me and my father. My dad put down the video camera and went to the bathroom to cry sad, happy tears, and it really seemed like his mom had come to visit. Did you ever witness anything paranormal as a child? Were you taken seriously? Let us know in the comments below. Or maybe your own child can see things that you cannot see. Please tell us in the comments below and subscribe. Thank you.